What's going on, everyone? I'm just a typical, average American here today to react to something that sounds pretty concerning, to be honest, and it's something that I think Americans in general really aren't paying nearly enough attention to. Apparently, Canada is starting to seriously discuss some of the ways in which you guys could strike back against the United States and do some serious damage, which is obviously extremely troubling to hear, as an American myself. But at the same time, we really shouldn't be that surprised that Canada is retaliating, against the US for all the stuff that we've been doing. So today, I want to take a look at this and learn about what this retaliation could look like. So let's take a look.
Another round of tariffs from the United States
They need us to survive.
and Canada.
I've seen that clip before. Classic. Classic Trump.
Round of tariffs from the United States.
They need us to survive.
Oh, you need us to survive. So we can just do whatever the hell we want, right? Because if you remember way back to the beginning of all this, when Trump started his second term, like when he gave some of the reasons for starting this whole trade war with Canada, if you remember, it was like drugs. All the massive amount of drugs coming from Canada. Huge problem. Huge. Yeah, that's all we ever talk about here. Yeah. That was a whole thing, which turned out to be nothing. And he talked about how we have a trade deficit with Canada and how that's a big problem. But it really is at odds with what he's saying here, right? Like he's saying Canada needs the United States. We don't need anything from Canada, so we can just we're in the position of power here. We can do what we want and treat them how we want. For one thing, no matter what kind of position of power you may find yourself in, you should treat your friends and allies in a respectful manner, like and want stuff that is mutually beneficial. That you would think that just goes without saying, and that would be our like trade policy, but Trump seems to think because we are in our high and mighty position, we can do all this crazy stuff. But it goes at odds with other things he has said, like we're in a trade deficit with Canada. So doesn't that mean that we purchase much more stuff from Canada than Canada purchases from us? So there's way more stuff that, by definition, that he has literally said, being in a trade deficit with Canada, by definition, we purchase so much more things from Canada. Wouldn't that go to reason that we need Canada a lot? So anyway, not that you need to like go to school with like all the logic and stuff to know what Trump is saying makes no sense, but because it's almost too easy. It's so. I remember when he said this.
And Canada's premiers are discussing another round of strategies to fight back, this time using energy as a bargaining chip.
What is this? What? So Canada's premiers, which I always have to think about. We don't have premiers. We have like governors, senators. I think that's generally the same thing. These are the leaders of the provinces. They have assembled just for the The leaders of Canada have assembled for the sole purpose of talking about how to retaliate against the US. Am I understanding this correctly?
Another round of strategies to fight back, this time using energy as a bargaining chip.
Energy. This is not good. This is not good for the United States. I'm trying to remain like objective here as much as I can. Obviously, I'm the American here. So, and I'll openly say this is bad for the US. Now, obviously, there's a whole other side of this where what the United States has been doing for over a year now has been very bad for Canada. On purpose, we've been doing that for the sole purpose of weakening, hurting Canada, threatening Canada. So a part of me, even in my American brain, has to admit, like, is it just all coming home to roost finally? Like, I don't want the United States to suffer at the hands of, like, Canada, like, withholding energy or something, like oil, I guess, stuff like that. I don't want that for us. But at the same time, would it make sense? Would it be like Canada just doing what the US would do to Canada? Yes. Yeah. Like, I would understand. Yeah. But I don't want it. So it's a weird thing to think about. And like I said, a lot of Americans don't even think about the possibility of Canada, like what Canada could do to us. You guys have shown a lot of restraint, frankly. This is the first time I'm actually hearing the Canadian government seriously getting together and talking about, like, yeah, maybe we should, like, withhold energy, like imports to the United States, or what can we do to send a message or something that could actually, like, really hurt us. Like, this is like Canadian citizens, everyday Canadians, you're already protesting, you're already boycotting the United States, not traveling here, not purchasing our goods. I know some provinces aren't selling American alcohol, but other than that, this is kind of the first time I've heard of the Canadian government in such a firm, sort of like aggressive way, talking about, like, what can we do to the US what they are doing to us? Which I can't blame you.
It's something that we talk about, absolutely.
We have to go full tilt.
Canada and the US have a highly interconnected energy system. Canadian crude makes up about 62% of all US oil imports.
And this is something I didn't appreciate for a very long time. I've done some videos recently where I learned, like, America really depends on Canada for a lot of stuff. And a lot of energy stuff. Like, I didn't know that for the longest time in my life. So which I would say a lot of Americans out there do not know that. We really shouldn't be pissing off Canada, of all countries. Not just because you're our friends and allies and that's just not what you should do, but because Canada could really, like, screw us over if you wanted to. So, yes, it's shocking how this is something we're not. America should be more afraid of this, frankly.
Imports, and Canada provides 85% of the electricity imported by the US.
Canada supplies 85% of our imported electricity? I kind of was aware of the electricity. I didn't know it was that much. 85%? What are we doing?
Quebec, through Hydro-Quebec, is one of Canada's main exporters to our southern neighbors. But not all premiers think using energy as a bargaining chip is a good idea. At least, not yet.
Oh, okay. So obviously I can see why. That is a very drastic, very polarizing decision. If Canada were to, like, withhold electricity, withhold oil, or raise the prices on it, That would be a big statement, which I'm sure some Canadians are in favor of, because God knows Donald Trump and the United States, we are not the least bit hesitant to do these types of things to Canada. I mean, we just started enacting like 50%, unheard of, 50% tariffs on select Canadian goods. And so Trump is certainly not hesitant to do that kind of stuff. But that's certainly something I admire about Canada, that's what kind of separates the Canada, your behavior from ours. But at a certain point, it's like you do have to stand up for yourself, which again, I'm just trying to remain objective about this, because Canada standing up for itself in this circumstance means hurting the United States, which I am in. So I'm trying to remain objective about that, but it's tough.
That's not going to happen.
Personally, I'm not there.
So why wouldn't Quebec be open to
Yeah.
using its energy exports as a tool to retaliate against American tariffs?
So this is Quebec in particular. I didn't know so much of our electricity came from Quebec. That's like kind of random to me, but I don't really know anything about it.
It can hurt Hydro-Quebec as much as it can hurt the buyer, because we have contracts and there will be legal implications.
Hydro
Contracts, legal implications. So what he's saying is Canada actually, honors its signed contracts and deals, obligations, and its word. Sorry, I only mentioned that because if you heard recently about the Gordie Howe International Bridge and how Trump and the U.S. Threw like a whole hissy fit over the terms of the agreement over that bridge, and how we demanded that the toll revenue be split in a different way, in a different timeline, and totally went back on our word about that whole thing. So, but that's neither here nor there, but it is refreshing to see that Canada actually cares about that kind of thing.
Hydro-Quebec has contracts with Massachusetts, Vermont, and most recently, New York. In 2023, Quebec exported 12.1 terawatt hours of electricity to the U.S.,
Okay.
enough to power roughly 1.15 million homes for an entire year.
Wow. Yeah, I really didn't know that I knew that we depended on Canada for quite a lot of energy, more than most Americans even realize, but I didn't know about this even. It's even more than I thought.
And these long-term contracts will carry an obligation to export.
But it can also hurt Hydro-Quebec's bottom line. The New York contract alone is worth up to $34 billion US.
Okay, so it does make sense. Like from their point of view, the Canadian company who owns all this and sells all this electricity to the United States, from their point of view, like withholding this, or I don't know what it would look like, the retaliation, whether it would look like withholding it or just increasing prices or selling it to someone else. From their point of view, like, although doing that they'd probably support the message that it sends to the US, like F you, or respect us and meet us halfway on this trade stuff. That although that message may be good for Canada, it like the act of doing this and giving up the United States as a customer, like did they say it's millions, billions of dollars for these contracts with the US? It could like put them out of business, which would like also be pretty bad.
He says it can hurt people here too, because Quebecers also rely on American electricity when ours is not enough.
Oh my God. Right. So I didn't even think about how, for one thing, it's so annoying. Like just thinking from the Canadian point of view here, Trump does all this crazy stuff to Canada, actively tries to hurt you. And when Canada, if you were to retaliate, like this, for example, it would be the absolute end of the world. I mean, you would never hear the end of it from Trump, how evil the Canada is. How could it possibly do this to the U.S.? What have we done? What have we done to deserve this? And how you'd never hear the end of it. Like, we can do whatever to Canada. Trump can do whatever. And you have to put up with it. And if you do something back to us, it's the end of the world, and Canadians are evil, and we don't understand why you're so angry at us. And I've heard several U.S. trade representatives and ambassadors say those exact words. Like, I don't understand why Canada is so mean, why they're so mad at us. So yes, if Canada withhold electricity from us, you better believe, like, I'm sure Trump would mandate that we take it away from you. And it would just create this never-ending cycle, which, but to be fair, at a certain point, you just have to accept that might be how it goes. Because Canada can't just sit back and do nothing. You can't just take it. Like, I understand if you want to do something in retaliation, even if it would cause us to retaliate, because it's like the classic, like, example of a bully. Like, the bully is going to bully you every day at school until you punch back. And yes, the bully might get mad and punch you back, and you might get hurt more, but just the act of fighting back in the long run is the right decision, usually. Not to condone violence or anything, but it sends a message, and it shows the bully, like, you can't pick on me, but you know something will happen if you try, just sending that message. So I think that really applies here, actually.
We buy from New York or New England, especially during peak hours. We buy, especially during the winter.
And when prices are low, we use America's cheap electricity and give our reservoirs a break. With demand increasing and our own reservoirs running low right now, some argue Quebec should prioritize its own needs.
It's almost like the United States and Canada was in this really awesome, really cool symbiotic relationship. We'd buy some energy from you, you'd buy some from us, mutually beneficial. It's almost like we had this great situation going on, and it's been ruined, and it's been twisted. It's been twisted into this situation where it's like, how can we use this against Canada? And then Canada has to think, well, what are we going to do if they use it against us? Do we have to? And you're forced to make these horrible decisions for your own self-preservation. That's what it's. Something really wonderful between our countries has been turned into something horrible.
But Pinault says, in the long term,
trade in electricity is good for everyone. It makes systems more economic, more reliable.
One political analyst says the new 50% tariffs won't have much of an impact anyways.
Our national GDP is not going to shrink tomorrow morning because we have new tariffs on honey, hockey sticks, essential oils. So the
hockey sticks. We put tariffs on hockey sticks? Is this just like what are we doing? It's just like funny because that's like very Canadian. Like, what? I didn't know about that one. What are we actually doing?
The response should be appropriate.
Mélenchon says, as tempting as it might be to want to fight back, we shouldn't give Trump a reason to escalate things.
See, I just don't know what to think about that. I think it's such a fine line. It's such a fine line. Because if you don't fight back against Trump, you just never know what he's going to do next. And he's certainly not going to hesitate to hurt you if he wants. You just are in a position where you're just doing nothing and hoping that nothing bad happens to you. But if you retaliate, something bad will almost certainly happen to you, but perhaps that will be the end of it. So I admit, it is a tough decision.
So what should premiers focus on then?
We should focus more on changing the regulatory burden right now for major projects. We should focus also on fostering interprovincial trade.
Premier Frechette says she believes being at the negotiating table is the way forward. She says if she sees progress in talks with the U.S. in the next 30 days, she might be prepared to give them a win by putting American alcohol back on Quebec shelves.
That would certainly be a nice sign of good faith, and I'm sure Trump would claim total victory at that point. It'd be very annoying, but there's quite a few situations going on where Canada has to like be the bigger person and let Trump think that he's gotten his way for the sake of getting along. I do understand that, and I agree that negotiation is the most ideal pathway forward. But it's like the United States and Canada already had a great relationship. We had already negotiated CUSMA in the past, and Trump violated all that. So it's like, even if we negotiate a new trade deal right now, he might just on a whim decide to violate that if he doesn't like something. So negotiating new trade deals, don't get me wrong, that sounds great, but we're certainly living in a time where nothing is set for certain, nothing is set in stone, even written agreements. We've learned that from the Gordie Howe Bridge situation, the CUSMA situation, we're tariffing when we shouldn't be. So it's just bad. I think the real answer is Donald Trump and the United States are doing things we should not be doing. And it's breaking a lot of things. And a lot of things don't make crystal clear sense anymore. And the pathway forward doesn't make complete sense. When you're dealing with someone who's very unreasonable, the normal rules of engagement no longer apply. And that's very strange, especially in modern civilized society. This is like a very odd situation. And very troubling. So, a lot is not certain, but this granted some clarity on, like, Canada is definitely considering, especially after these 50% tariffs, Canada is seriously considering its options, whether that's some peaceful trade agreement or a not so peaceful retaliation, a message, energy, like withholding that, or who knows what it will really look like. But for now it seems to be like not seriously considered, but it talked about. So that's news to me. So anyway, if you enjoyed this, feel free to give this video a like or leave a comment with your thoughts, especially if you're Canadian and you have thoughts on all this, because this really affects you. Feel free to leave a comment. That'd be really interesting. And if you're interested in more videos like this, me reacting to Canada and Canadian things, feel free to subscribe for more. And until then, thanks for watching, and see you next time.